Blog Talk Radio.
I think this situation absolutely requires a really futile and stupid gesture be done on somebody's part. We're just the guys to do it.
The fun has just begun.
All right, welcome back to That Nerd Show. It's another Sunday, and we are here being nerdy. With me to start the show is our social media director and guest host again, Whitney Moore.
Hello, Marcus. How are you?
Yeah, that's right. In case anybody couldn't figure out who I was, I'm Marcus, one of the hosts. I think I just take for granted everybody should know who I am. That's my ego getting ahead of me
right,
there.
everybody should just go ahead and know.
They should automatically know. Now I'm going to cry controversy about the Oscars because they don't know who I am yet. So, and we'll be talking a little bit about that later. Brendan will be joining our show for the second half as we do our tribute to Alan Rickman, talking about all the best movies he has done and why nerds love him. So if you saw the promo work or promo artwork and stuff on social media, that is our show this week. We meant to do this last week, but we had to do an X-Files show because the X-Files came back, and it came back in a big way. And we'll be reviewing the first two episodes a little bit later. But anyway, Whitney and I are going to be talking about news and everything else in the nerd universe that's happened this week, and we're going to get started with that. And then we will get to talking about Alan Rickman. But I do want to tell our audience out there, if you're listening to us live, you can call in at 347-989-1732 in the second half of the show and talk a little bit about Alan Rickman and your favorite movies that he was in. And maybe some hidden treasures when it comes to movies that most people don't realize that he was in. So, but anyway, let's talk about some nerd news. Things that are happening. We're going to start with the CW and ordering 6 new pilots that are kind of nerdy and things we will be checking out. One of them is a pilot called Riverdale. It is set in present day and based on the Archie comics. So.
I just read about this. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a part of it that's like, okay, I could kind of get this. Archie's kind of a nerdy kid and stuff like that, and I think this fits well within our universe. The only problem is this going to be the other half of the CW that's really bad, where it's this Dawson's Creek bullshit and that we don't really care about? Like Beverly Hills 90210, redoing it, and it's all about teenage crushes, and you never get to any, really good drama that's not annoying. That's the only thing I fear with this show.
I would honestly think the same thing, because, like, when I think of Archie, I think of, like, the comics at the grocery store. Like, that was what I grabbed at the grocery store, and like, hey, Mom, can I get this? So I don't really know.
Well,
we'll see. It could turn out great and be fun, but I'm going to, hope for
I'll be
the
quite honest.
Best in it.
Well, I understand why you want to do it in present day. To show that teenagers are still the same, and but they're dealing with social media issues, and everybody has an iPhone and crap like that. But I'd also like to see as a period piece where you are dealing with kids in the 60s, and it's like Archie's comics meets American Graffiti, where you're cruising in cool cars, and you've got really great classic rock music and stuff like that. I think that would be a bold show, and I think that would work a little bit better. That's just a minor suggestion from me.
Honestly, I completely agree. I think that's part of, like, the fun of Archie comics. They were sitting in diners and, ordering hamburgers and milkshakes and going to sock hops. Like, that's kind of the fun of Archie comics. And
right.
So we'll see.
I mean, we'll at least check it out. But if it starts turning into a little bit too much Jersey Shore, meets the Archie comics, then we're going to tear you a new one. I'm sorry. Actually, this is how I know it's going to be bad. This is how I know. If Kristen Kruk from Smallville and that crappy show Beauty and the Beast, which had nothing to do with a beast, if she's casting in it, you already made your first mistake.
Right,
again,
absolutely.
When we rag on certain actors from the nerd universe, we're not saying they can't be nice people and wonderful people in real life. We just don't want them acting in nerd stuff because they're horrible.
Right.
So she's kind of the female version of Channing Tatum. Just saying.
That's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So, also, some of the pilots are coming out with they are doing a TV series based on the movie Frequency, which is actually kind of interesting, which dealt with, time travel and being able to talk to someone 30 years in the past over a ham radio. Instead of the movie where it's a father and son talking, it will be a female police detective set in 2016, and she discovers she can speak via ham radio with her estranged father who died in 1996. You've already made your first mistake in this. Even in 1996, people weren't using ham radios unless they were truckers. Technology had evolved enough. I remember. I graduated high school then, okay? We had the internet. Windows 95 had come out. Kids were playing Doom. You had your first PlayStation and cell phones. Not everybody had a cell phone, but, they were like still kind of big and fat, and you could only store like 12 numbers in it, and there was car phones, but nobody was speaking on ham.
Car phones were a thing too, right?
Do what?
I said car phones were a thing, right? At least.
Exactly. Everybody had a car phone.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm not exactly sure where the ham radio still comes out. You're still about 20 years too late on the ham radio.
Yeah, I think.
Unless it's a dystopian world. So, but I like the movie Frequency, and that this might be an interesting series. So, there's also a Transylvania series. So it's another vampire crap. It's about a headstrong young woman in search of her missing father. Ventures to New York City to Transylvania, where she teams up with a wrongfully disgraced Scotland Yard detective, and together they witness the birth of the most famous monsters and villains in history. Yay! That's how I feel about that.
I think it's been done. I think since the kind of birth of Twilight, and when Twilight got popular, everybody did a vampire show. And I think we need to put it on the shelf for a little bit. Let it sit, let it breathe, because I'm tired of vampires.
We don't need any more vampires. We're done.
No.
Okay? Twilight ruined it for us.
Yes.
But there are two shows that might show promise with the CW. An untitled paranormal project. A young woman seeks help from a parapsychologist when she begins to experience paranormal phenomena. So, that's nerdy, and we will definitely check it out. There's an untitled Mars project. We're talking about the first human colony on Mars. And yes, there's a Total Recall joke in there somewhere, but, we've used them before, so. But anyway, I mean, they've definitely got they're ordering pilots for shows that we will take an interest in, and we'll let you know if they're any good, because that's what we do. We're not going to sugarcoat it for you. If they're bad, we're going to tell you they're bad. So, all right, this will excite everybody. A new Justice League animated series has been announced. And while they have done this before, this is the best part. Kevin Conroy will be back to voice Bruce Wayne and Batman, and Mark Hamill will be back to voice the Joker. So, I mean, right there, you've already started off great. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a great storyline at the fact that you got these two people coming back to voice characters. So,
I think.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I just think a big part of cartoons is, when you're really into cartoons, is that voiceover work. I really appreciate a good voiceover actor. It really can give a character a whole new level. And I think, kind of the casual cartoon watcher doesn't respect that. And I'm so excited Mark Hamill is back as the Joker. I think it's going to be amazing. Mark Hamill has done so much voiceover work, and he's absolutely amazing, and I'm super pumped. I'm very excited.
Well, there was talk that he was actually going to retire and not be the Joker anymore, but, and there's been that lull in his career post Luke Skywalker where, we've only really known him because of voice work.
Right.
While he may not have the physical presence and all the mannerisms as, other Jokers like Jack Nicholson or Heath Ledger, he is definitely, if not better than these two people just because of the voice, And, getting to play the trickster on the Flash TV show and actually bringing him back from the original Flash TV show has been, great as well. So, and for anybody that's really grown up with Batman, any kind of animated series, Kevin Conroy, it's like Peter Cullen in Optimus Prime. While the Transformer movies were not really that good, and Michael Bay pretty much shit upon nerds like he usually does, he did one great thing. He got Peter Cullen to come back and voice Optimus Prime. That pretty much makes the Transformer movies bearable. So.
Right.
But there we go. This will be featured on the Cartoon Network. We don't have a date yet, but there we go. Jada Pinkett Smith will return as Fish Mooney on Gotham. The series will return on Monday, February 29th. And just know that somewhere later this year, she will be back, playing that character. Or as I like to call it, the most unnecessary character on TV. There is a part of our audience that watches Gotham. Okay, we don't. Even though we will admit it's getting better. Okay, but I don't understand why you have every villain known to man in the Batman universe coming into Gotham, and you had to make up a character with her. She wasn't even that good.
No, And I know this show is a little rough when my mom, who wants nothing to do with comic books, goes, "This show is really good." And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't think I need to sit down and watch this show.
Nope.
I tried, and it was, the first season is almost unwatchable.
Yeah.
I venture to say. And I know there are people who love it, but I've seen a few episodes here and there where it's getting better. I like the idea behind it, but when you add like a character that I have no kind of love for and even a good backstory for, I was like, okay, I'm next. Move on.
Yeah. Well, we've said it before about Gotham. I don't really care unless it involves Batman, and Batman and Bruce Wayne is not interesting at 13 years old. You're just not. You don't become interesting until you go off and get trained by the League of Assassins and then come back and be Batman. All of this, backstory, you're taking way too long to tell it, and then, basically the last episode is going to be when we finally get Batman. Well, I don't care. I don't want it at that point. I don't need to know all the backstory about how the villains came to be, especially in 22 episodes over 4, 5, 6 years or however long Fox thinks that they'll be able to do it. If you want to tell some backstory, great. Have it in each episode. Do it like Arrow, where you are getting the backstory of him on the island and all that, but it's mixed into a current episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, for the Gotham fans and for the few people out there that might actually like that character, she is coming back. So, I thought she was dead, but I guess reading that headline, she's not. That's how uninterested I am.
I have no idea.
Here's a little bit of interesting gaming news for everybody. Conan the Barbarian might be stuck in development hell, according to an article. Arnold says it's coming back, but maybe it's not after they saw, Terminator Genesis. But anyway, although he was actually the bright spot about that in that movie. The character is making its way back to video games with the newly announced Conan Exiles, done by Funcom. It previously developed the MMO RPG Age of Conan Unchained and stuff, but there will be a trailer for Conan Exiles coming soon. In the game, you are an exile, one of 1,000 cast out to fend for themselves in a barbaric wasteland swept by terrible sandstorms and besieged on every side by enemies. Here, you must fight to survive, build, and dominate. Hungry, thirsty, and alone, your first battle is against the harsh environment. Grow crops or hunt animals for food. Harvest resources, build weapons and tools, build a shelter to survive. Ride across the vast world and explore alone or band together with other players to build an entire settlement and all that. So basically, you're an exile making crops like that game on Facebook. That's what it sounds like in the beginning. So that's great from a strategy standpoint. Here's what makes this game fun. This is Conan. We want it. It should basically be a straight hack and slash game. You just need to wield a sword and kill people. That's really all you need to do. I mean, I like the premise that it's, you're set in this barbaric world, but really we play these games for the violence. Nobody cares about building crops in a video game. That's boring. So anyway, there's a game coming out based on the Conan world, and that's happening. All right. What else is going on? So I guess there's a new series coming to the Sci-Fi Channel. It is the first. Well, actually, they basically dropped a teaser trailer this week of Winona Earp. Yeah, you heard me right. It's a live-action television series based on the publishing comic treated by Bo Smith and is scheduled to premiere April 1st in a couple of months. It's a fast-paced, contemporary thriller that follows Wyatt Earp's great-granddaughter as she battles demons and other supernatural beings. Winona is witty and wild. She's a wild, witty modern-day gunslinger using her unique abilities and a dysfunctional posse of allies to bring the paranormal to justice. So basically supernatural with, Wyatt Earp's great-granddaughter. So,
there you go.
Yeah, that's... No, I mean, it does actually kind of look kind of interesting. Melanie Scrofano, who was in Damien and Gangling Undercover, she will star as Winona Earp, and Tim Rosen will play the legendary con artist Doc Holliday, and Shamir Anderson plays the mysterious Agent Dawes. She is from Constantine and Defiance. So there you go. We'll see if that's any good and let you know. So far, we're getting a lot of average shows on the Sci-Fi Channel. But, they are trying to put out good content, good series to watch on top of borrowing things from, Canadian TV like Lost Girl and Continuum and things like that. So, anyway, all right. Stephen Amell will appear on the DC's Legends of Tomorrow as an old man Oliver. So they've talked about crossovers, and basically the Legends will travel to the year 2046, where they will meet not only a goatee sporting and a one-armed Oliver Queen, but also his son, Connor Hawke. The episode is set to premiere later this year. I don't think they actually have a firm date of when it will be, but it has been announced that he will be on Legends of Tomorrow. We'll get to see him older. And yes, apparently there is, a couple of spoilers. He only has one arm. So, and I don't remember enough from the comics to know if the Green Arrow actually loses his arm. But, Connor Hawke is, actually, his son, and what he named his, son. I guess they're not going to spoil who the mother is and stuff. So if you go by the comics, it's supposed to be the Black Canary, but, we'll see. Anyway, that'll be an interesting crossover and stuff. And, okay, so Has everybody heard out there that they're basically doing a new version of 24? It's not necessarily a remake, but they're basically having a whole other unit of CTU.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah. Okay. Which, you know, I kind of like the idea. I mean, having a show like that with, you know, other actors. But then again, I mean, how are you ever going to find anybody as, you know, great as, you know, Kiefer Sutherland? It's called 24 Legacy, and they have cast Miranda Otto from The Lord of the Rings and War of the Worlds, and she will play opposite star Corey Hawkins. Anyway, 24 Legacy it follows Hawkins as Eric Carter, a man with a troubled past who turned his life around in the Army Rangers, becoming a military hero. After settling with his wife Nicole in Virginia, Carter's past comes back to haunt him, and then he's pulled back into action. He eventually asks CTU for help saving his life, and stopping what potentially could be one of the largest, you know, scale terror attacks on American soil. She will play the former head of CTU, Rebecca Ingram, currently married to a senator. Ingram is beginning to reconsider having left the CTU in the first place. No word yet on when the pilot will be out, but it looks like sometime next year. So they have their main female lead with Miranda Otto, and a lot of you might actually remember her this past season on Homeland, as CIA office in Germany basically turned traitor. So there you go.
There you go.
We'll see if that's any good. I don't know how to. I mean, again, I like the idea of, you know, having another, you know, CTU type series. I think it's going to be like CSI. We're just going to keep doing spin-off series in different places because we can.
Right, and what I think will probably happen is we'll have like a couple great seasons, and then they might hit a wall, like, because, you know, the CSI spin-offs, they had like one or two good seasons, and then they kind of went a little crazy. So we'll see. But I loved the original series; it was amazing, and, you know, Jack Bauer is, you know, just a badass. So hopefully they can find some more magic in here.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'd actually like for them to do another 12-episode series like they did a couple of years ago with 24. I mean, to be honest.
Oh, that would be even better. Just
I mean, if Fox just wants to go back to the vault and, you know, basically bring back their hit shows, because they've already announced that they're going to bring back Prison Break. I don't know why, but they are. And you know, the two main actors who play brothers are on board. So there you go. So we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, all right. I found this kind of amusing. Stretch Armstrong will be coming to Netflix. So everybody, if you're a child of the '80s, you remember Stretch Armstrong. No, we haven't gotten to this week's Sign of the Apocalypse yet. We will, but this is not it. I know what everybody's thinking. No, it announced today that it is adding 3 new original series to its lineup. The iconic Hasbro brand Stretch Armor will stretch into television screens for the first time with an all-new look in an animated series from Hasbro Studios, coming 2017. It revolves around an overscheduled teenager named Jake Armstrong and his 2 best friends. When the trio is accidentally exposed to an experimental chemical, they become Stretch Armstrong and the Flex Fighters, a team of unlikely, stretchable superheroes who expand beyond the confines of their lives and embark on a series of adventures. So there you go. Who says that you can't make a television series out of a toy?
Me. I'm voting no on this one. I don't know.
I will say this. I did kind of laugh. I mean, I did have a Stretch Armstrong, being a child of the 80s. But if your audience really is for like a 5 or 6 year old and younger, sure, why not?
Yeah, if that's
no.
And you said it is an animated series.
Yeah. It's an animated series. That's where it belongs. Now I will say this. I mean, back in the 80s, there was a television series / toy series called Mask, and basically they created the toy line, but had the television series be the marketing side of everything. That's what made it so popular. Lasted for one season. I remember having a couple of the toys. It was a lot of fun. But that was basically a kind of a rip-off of Transformers, where vehicles could change into something, and it with a family and a bunch of friends who were kind of superheroes and mercenaries and helps people. That was fun. But Stretch Armstrong, now I will say this, it will probably actually be better than the Fantastic Four movie. I mean,
okay, if that's the bar we're setting,
I think it is. I mean, if you're going to involve superheroes that stretch, then that's the bar we set. All right. So for everybody that thinks Harrison Ford is completely out of Star Wars, no, Han Solo is not coming back from the dead. He is dead. He's not mostly dead. He is dead. Okay. So Harrison Ford is set to preview the Star Wars lands coming to Disney's parks. He will give viewers an exclusive preview of Star Wars lands being developed at Disneyland and Walt Disney World resorts. So basically, he will be your masters of ceremony, showing you everything that's going to happen. And it will air. There's a special that will air on Sunday, February 21st, at 9 p.m. on ABC. So anyway, Harrison Ford is going to take you into what they're doing, at Disney World and their new theme parks and stuff. Now, I mean, I think that's kind of cool for someone who, has wanted to kind of stay out of Star Wars, and I think the only reason he came back was so they can put the character to rest, that kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, so that'll be very interesting. Yeah.
That'll be neat. Definitely something I'll watch and check out just to even see what they're doing and what's going on. So.
Well, I like the idea of the theme parks. I mean, if you're actually going to build a full-scale Millennium Falcon that people can go in and sit down, I mean, I'm all on board. I don't know if I really want to pay their prices to go see it, but, at the same time, I mean, I like what they're doing with their theme parks, now when we start. And, yes, getting Harrison Ford to do it, getting Han Solo. So the only thing is, if that's going to happen, then the new kid who was in the stunt guy who was in the Chewbacca outfit, you got to get him to play Chewie. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
You've got to be able to get this guy to come back and be Chewie with Harrison Ford. Just saying. So there will be a special on February 21st, and we will check it out and talk a little bit more about it. All right. This was actually kind of cool. Yes, this is actually happening. So in honor of Back to the Future, well, I don't know if they're really doing this because of Back to the Future, but this is for Back to the Future fans. DeLoreans will be going back into production at the factory, and new DeLoreans will roll out in 2017. So there you go. Yes.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Back to if you wanted to get your hands on DeLorean, get ready, because when you're going to you don't need roads. But they're based out of Detroit with manufacturing done in Northern Ireland. The DeLorean Motor Company died in early death in 1982, but since 1987, businessman Stephen Wyman has independently operated a DeLorean refurbishing and maintenance business with DMC out of a 40,000 square foot location in Humble, Texas. There you go. 1997, they acquired all the remaining parts and inventory and rights to reproduce, and after a lengthy court case, finally settled with the widow of John DeLorean for the rights to use the DeLorean Motor Company trademark and logo this year. So yes, it's unclear how many. This is Momentum's. Just there were only 9,000 DeLoreans ever produced, and out of them, only about 65 still really exist. Refurbished models typically go for 40 to 55,000. Wynn is hoping to sell the new ones for less than 100,000. Well, thank you there. Only less than 100,000.
Only less. Well, it's totally in my budget now.
Woo. Right, exactly. So, for some of you nerd fathers out there, you're thinking after you heard this announcement, which of my kids are not going to college? Which one can we not send to college because they're going to get kicked out anyway? But anyway, yes, there will be new DeLoreans. Now, it's not really clear if they're going to redo, if it's actually going to be the same old, the same style, or they're going to touch up the body just a little bit with the doors flinging up, kind of like Ford has done with the Mustang. Like they kind of went back to the 1960s version of the Mustang, but made it sleeker and more modern. But yes, there will be new DeLoreans on the road. Unfortunately, you will not get a free flux capacitor with these cars. They're just not going to have that. And I have to say, if they're still just going to be barely below $100,000, they should come with a free flux capacitor.
Right? Just put it over the $100,000 and put the flux capacitor in there.
Right. But I love all the guys that do actually, refurbish these DeLoreans, and I actually got my picture taken in one of the conventions a few years ago, and I actually know the guy who did this, and he has restored some other classic nerd cars. But oh my God, it was great, and there was a hoverboard, not a real one, unfortunately, but there was a hoverboard in there, and it was fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
I was at
all right. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying I went to the Grapevine Christmas Parade this past year, and there was 4 running in the Christmas parade, and there was 4 of them just in a row, and it was really neat. It was just a bunch of older guys, and they all had the doors up and were driving slow. It was really neat. So I agree. I think it's really fun.
Well, I think one of those models is probably the same guy that I know who has does this as part of a business. But yeah, I mean, you're seeing refurbished models pop up a lot more, especially this past year with it being the 30th anniversary of Back to the Future. So, but I think I'd rather take the refurbished one, to be quite honest with you. I mean, at least those have a flux capacitor. All right. So I'm going to preface this news item with, no, this is still not this week's Sign of the Apocalypse, but it is a little bit of news for all of you action junkies out there who this is actually a real thing. Tom Cruise and Jerry Bruckheimer have been discussing a return for, Top Gun 2. So there's some latest updates on this. May will be the 30th anniversary of Top Gun. It's the highest-grossing movie of 1986. And, of course, what made Tom Cruise really, really famous, more than Risky Business, where he slid across the floor in his underwear. Cruise is fully on board for Top Gun 2, along with the original Top Gun and Days of Thunder producer Jerry Bruckheimer and stuff. So, this is the first public movement on Top Gun since November, when Val Kilmer took to Facebook to proclaim that he had been asked to reprise his role as Iceman, although he later told the Weekly that he had jumped the gun on that. Being offered a role is very different from doing a role. Okay, well, thank you for that cryptic message there, Iceman. They don't call you the Iceman for nothing.
Brenda.
Anyway, Cruz told the Daily Mail last summer it would be fun. I wanted to get back into those jets. It would have to be practical. I don't want any CGI jets. I want to shoot it like we shot the first one. Now, I want to tell our audience out there, Brendan and I have a very good friend of ours who passed away last year, who was an old Navy vet and was actually stationed at Miramar when they filmed Top Gun. He was one of the stunt guys and flight medics who worked on the film. It was, the Navy lent those guys out. So it's always fun to talk about, it was always fun to hear his stories about all of those guys when they were filming, and that none of them could ever keep their lunch down when they went up in the airplane and stuff like that. But, you had great flight scenes, and it was all practical effects. So, I agree with it's great to see that Tom Cruise wants that. So the concept is basically that pilots are obsolete because of drones. Tom Cruise, as Maverick, is going to show them that they're not obsolete. They're here to stay. So, okay. I guess it takes a little Maverick and Iceman to show that why we still need pilots.
Right. I think the first Top Gun was amazing. It's one of my favorite movies. It's definitely Tom Cruise in his prime. I love that movie, but Tom Cruise loves a sequel. He loves to try to make a franchise out of everything. And I think, I like if they're going to do it, absolutely, they should do practical effects. I think that's awesome, but I really don't think they need to do it.
No, I don't think there's a place for Top Gun 2. I understand, 30 years later when you are dealing with, in a world of drones. Mm-hmm. We reviewed a movie by Ethan Hawke about a year and a half ago called Good Kill, or last year, I should say, talking about a pilot who was a drone pilot now and never got any more flight time and just kind of burned out. And that does happen, yes. You spend all this time training pilots, and, now it's cheaper just to have them sit at a computer screen and fly like a video game. Anyway, the screenwriter Justin Marks, who has done The Jungle Book, penned the most recent draft of the script, and there was a draft by Peter Craig who did the movie The Town. Great movie. So you have some good screenwriters, but again, I think relevance more than anything else. Really, what made the original Top Gun movies so fantastic was because you're dealing with great practical effects, the soundtrack, it's the 80s, they're all hot shots, and you are dealing with the Top Gun school, which, I've got a friend from high school who has been there and says it, in a lot of ways, it really is just like that in the movie, It just, if you're trying to be relevant 30 years later and trying to make a movie to have commentary about drones, fine, okay? But are we really going to get the same stuff that we saw in the original that made it so great? I guess they'll just be the old school pilots showing the young bucks. You know what it is? It's going to be like the Expendables, but coming back together as pilots and showing the young guys how it's done.
There it is.
Hey, if they make Top Gun 2, we will see it. But I just don't. I don't think they need to make this movie. Not at all. All right. One quick news item, and then we're going to get to reviews and everything. So, here are some free games in the month of February for PlayStation and Xbox fans. Excuse me. You can get the indie game Nom Nom Galaxy, play that for free. The cooperative shooter Helldivers Democracy Strikes Back. And the racing title Grid Autosport. Persona Form Arena Unimix, and for the PlayStation 3, the puzzle platform Lemmings Touch, and of course the strategy RPG Nova 111 for PS Vita. Xbox Gold members will be able to download the action RPG Hand of Fate for the entire month of February on Xbox One, plus the stealthy title Styx, Master of Shadows. And no, that's not a new album by Styx. I know there's one or two people out there that are already thinking that. We want to clarify. And for the Xbox 360 side of things, players will be able to download the side-scrolling brawler Sacred Citadel and the action shooter Gears of War 2. So there you go. Get some free games from Xbox and PlayStation. Some oldies and goodies mixed in there. That's really the only thing we have for gaming news until new stuff is released. But we will be reviewing things like, Tom Clancy's The Division and For Honor and games like that that'll be coming out in the next couple of months. So, but that does it for nerd news. That is what's happening. So, there will be more details coming out about, the Batman versus Superman movie and Wonder Woman. As we stated last week, we're going to get Justice League Part 1 in 2017 and the Wonder Woman movie earlier that year. So, anyway, and we will definitely be letting you know all that. All right, so reviews for everybody. As for reviews, we don't really have any movie reviews on the show. You can go back and read the written reviews about Kung Fu Panda 3. I don't know where I was going with that. But
sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't really trying to make a joke, but there we go. And I'm not even drinking on this show. Jesus. But anyway, Chloe James wrote a review on it this week and gave it a 7. So there you go. Also, 45 Years, you can read Alex Moore's review on that film, a little indie film with Charlotte Rampart and Tom Courtenay and stuff. Now, basically, the only thing we've got going on really in reviews this week are TV reviews. There's a couple of great reviews dealing with The Magicians, the first 2 episodes, and In the Flesh on BBC. You can go and read our review online. So, and we do invite our audience to check out the new design of our website and the flow of everything with, featured items. So, anyway, while The Magicians did premiere this week, it obviously got overshadowed by, more important things like The X-Files. And The X-Files obviously was a lot better. I will say this about The Magician's review that Sarah Brown did this week. Hits the nail right on the head. So far, it's adequate. It's not great. It's about a 6 out of 10. You're dealing with a school of magic and 2 friends. One gets accepted, and he's obviously kind of a chosen one, and the other one, she thinks they made a mistake, and of course, as being angry and before they can kind of wipe her mind, she forces herself to remember that magic is real, and gets invited by another class of magicians, basically the bad guys. I think that's what they're setting up. So, it was interesting, but it's a series that we will definitely have to finish out and see where they go with it. Can't tell you yet if it's going to be great or if it's, really going to grab us. But so far, it's okay. So I'll put it to you this way, though. It comes on the Sci-Fi Channel at 8 o'clock right after the X-Files. So, if you're bored after you've gotten done with the X-Files and you want to check out, The Magicians, there you go. At least it's not competing with shows like the X-Files. So, and before we get to talking about the first 2 episodes of the X-Files, which did premiere last Sunday and on Monday, excuse me, everybody, I do want to let everybody know about a great little show that we have seen the entire series to, You, Me, and the Apocalypse. And this was done on Sky TV in cooperation with NBC and the BBC networks. So you have a great cast of British actors mixed in with American actors, and all of these great little side stories going on when the apocalypse hits, and the world is going to end in 34 days. Basically, the premise is bringing all these characters together who are connected, and trying to make their way to a secret bunker in Slough, England, of all places. And there's a great funny story about, why it's there and stuff. But you have some really, really talented people. Diana Rigg plays this very mysterious character, and just kind of whacked out millionaire. She's basically been faking her own death for 30 years. Yeah, so there you go. And if you don't know who Diana Rigg is, James Bond fans will know her as the Count Tracy, the Count from Countess, from on Her Majesty's Secret Service. The only woman that James Bond ever got married to, and then tragically gets killed. And she had the unfortunate pleasure of starring in the one film with George Lazenby. Actually, it wasn't a bad film, but But you will also currently know her on, Game of Thrones, playing Lady Tyrell. Or is it Martell? No, it's Martell, right? See, this is the problem with Game of Thrones. You can't get the books done on time, and then you can't remember all the names unless you have the appendix sitting in front of you. Jesus. Kind of need Jesus right now to remember all these names.
I have to agree with you on that one. I struggle following that.
Who?
I'm like,
but anyway,
all related.
Yeah, I think it's the Martells, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. If not, that's what we're going with so far for this show. But yeah, we currently see her on Game of Thrones and always squaring off against the Lannisters and stuff. So she basically plays a very strong female character, and she's great on You, Me, and the Apocalypse. But you also got Rob Lowe, who's a Catholic priest, and his whole job is discounting miracles and looking at science to see if anything is real. He basically holds the title of Devil's Advocate. That's what the church calls it. And his assistant is a nun who is trying to deal with her own crisis of faith. You got Megan Mullally in it, who steals the show in so many ways, playing a white supremacist who helps Jenna Fisher's character break out of prison. So, and a bunch of other British actors that you will recognize. It's typical British humor. It's dark, it's witty. The writing is pretty fantastic. So I would definitely give it a good 8 out of 10. But you have to watch the entire series, to really get everything. You're just not. You're going to have funny moments in each series, but at the same time, putting it all together, that's what makes it great. So, all right. The X-Files. Boy, did that come back in a big way.
It was. I completely agree. It was. These first 2 episodes are incredible.
Like I said, as much as I loved everything, I love the fact that it seems like Mulder and Scully haven't really skipped a beat, and he's definitely a lot darker and more of a skeptic and all that. Gillian Anderson has aged very well. And you know what? I was complaining, when that she wasn't really going to be a redhead for the X-Files, and I was wrong, actually. She's not. It's not the dark red that she had, later in the original series, but it is closer to the red that she had in the beginning, the lighter red, almost blondish. I know that seems like a minor thing to complain about with the X-Files, but as someone who was, in love with, Agent Scully, I think that's a very big deal. I'm just putting that out there. And I know there's a lot of nerds that agree with me on that. But, it's great to have them back and to, question everything that, they thought that they had right with the old conspiracy. And to know and to ask the question, what if it was all a lie? What if they had dedicated part of their lives to a lie? And then to end the very first episode with the smoking man, we have a small problem. Yeah, they've reopened the X-Files. The only complaints that I really have are, it just seems like all of a sudden the X-Files were like reopened. There's like no backstory. Did they have to retrain? It's like, you've been gone for 14 years, but hey, you're back in the office now, and we're not going to skip a beat.
Yeah, that was I kind of didn't even really process that they had officially been reopened until the cigarette smoking man goes, "We have a problem. The X-Files have been reopened." I was like, "Oh, okay, so it's official. They've been reopened. Okay, thank you."
Well. And we've got to, we've been here before where, they've shut the X-Files down, then they've brought them back. It's happened like 2 or 3 times over the course of the original series. But, you get to this first episode and you go into this empty office and it's, the only 2 things you have from the original series are Mulder's pencil still hanging in the ceiling and, of course, the I Want to Believe poster, at the bottom. On the floor, that he kind of rips off. And then, the next time you see the office, it's like they've never left. Everything, there's a poster hanging up. It's a mess. It's like, wait a minute, the files were missing, and now, it's like you guys have always been there. So, I understand time constraints with, commercials and everything, but there's got to be some scenes that shows what happened. They can't just seriously come back into the FBI after 14 years and, this is it. But, the second episode, the Monster of the Week episode was actually very good. And it also had, it also dealt with, their son William, and dealing with those issues. And I loved the flashbacks of what could have been.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
But the first episode, a lot of people have kind of rated that episode as it's, they threw in too much, but it didn't really fully deliver. It's just, hey, here's the characters. That him and Scully aren't together anymore, and he doesn't really have a car, and he holds up into his house and stuff. But I'm like, as a way of reintroducing everybody and his passion and him wanting to, go public and all that. And then, of course, that one scene where she's kind of refreshing Tad O'Malley's screen and then it's just gone and you don't hear a word from him, like he is completely gone. And then, of course, you see the very end where the woman who supposedly has been abducted gets kind of abducted again. So I agree with your review. I think it's the very first episode's not perfect, but I would give it a good solid 8 or 9. It's everything is right there with who those characters are and setting up why the X-Files need to come back and what really is the new conspiracy and that kind of thing. And dealing with the Roswell crash and the old man who, does, and it was, like I said, I very much enjoyed it. And you?
I agree. I did a review on That Nerd Show and on our blog, and I gave it an 8 for the first episode. I thought it was a really great, solid first episode. I loved the kind of deep throat character, the doctor from the Roswell crash. I really liked those flashbacks that they did. I hope they kind of continue with these. They did the flashback to Roswell in the first episode. They did the kind of, what could have been flashbacks in for
right.
What could have been for, if they had their son. I'm hoping they kind of stick with that. My biggest complaint was I did not like the Tad O'Malley character at all. I thought he was really, I get what the purpose that he served. I just didn't like the character. And then when he had the weird come on with
he was a little creepy.
I was like, what's happening here? Like, this is creepy. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I think
he was creepy, but what got me is she didn't seem to mind. It's like,
no.
Hey, let's hang out in your limo and drink champagne. I'm like, are you not getting late enough, Agent Scully? Mulder's holed up in his little house. It's not like you can't go pay him a visit.
Right. It was but and then I agree. The Monster of the Week episode was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I loved it because it was really creepy. It was like, it had when she cut open her belly, and I'm not very squeamish, I was like, oh, okay, this is about how it goes. All right. So it was so I liked it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the fun that can be X-Files is it is creepy and gory. It is the Monster of the Week, and the kind of the children reminded me of X-Men Rejects. They tried to get into Dr. Xavier's school and they were like, you're not quite there. But it was there was some definite.
But you're also, touching upon phenomena that they've come across before, with the kid and the girl. It reminded me, that actually kind of reminded me of, the episode with Giovanni Ribisi and Jack Black where he, conducts lightning out of his hands. And, of course, you have, there's a really great episode in the first season with the twin girls who were separated at birth but somehow come back together, and they have kind of psychic abilities and stuff. So and of course, all the experimentations, that doctor in that episode is that he's a mad scientist, and it was a very good episode,
Mm-hmm.
and at least making them question, what happened to their son? Is he okay? And, here's the reason we keep him in hiding because of mad scientists like this that just basically want to experiment on him and use them, for their selfish reasons, even though they're saying what they're doing is good and they're trying to help and all that bullshit. It's definitely a lot, the wit back and forth. I do, again, it's some minor complaints about, he's David Duchovny now is Agent Mulder. He's a little bit more gruff and cynical and not like he was, in the original series. And I kind of miss that, and I hope a little bit more unfolds with it. But the whole, bathroom scene where, the guy thought he wanted a blowjob, and he's like, whoa, hey, now. That was a good. You're like all the others.
Just denying your. Yeah, that was
right. The Easter eggs really do come on about touching upon other episodes, and callback, like the sonic, rings in the ears where you can only hear. That's actually a nod to that episode with Bryan Cranston called Drive in the 6th season, where they had to keep driving faster to make the sonic things go lower.
The noise stuff. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, like I said, a lot of great stuff to come. I can't wait to see, the rest of everything. It looks like tomorrow's episode is going to be a lot of fun dealing with an actual, true, ridiculous lizard-like monster and really getting back to some of the really, really great fun episodes they had. My only thing is you came out so strong, and you've got this new mythology, and you're only doing 6 episodes. You've got to bring X-Files back you've got to be able to bring it back more to touch upon what is going on. Why is the smoking man still alive? What is the government doing now?
Yeah, he should not still be alive. There's no way.
Right.
So he's
I'm going to bring Brendan up real quick. If the computer works. Brendan, are you with us? I guess Skynet is...
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Uh-oh.
What is going on? What is going on here? Hello, what is going on? Can you hear me? That's fast.
We can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine. I've heard you the whole time.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's going on. All right, real quick before we get to this week's Sign of the Apocalypse, and we are running a little over, Brendan, what did you think of the first two episodes of the X-Files? How would you rate them?
I give episode 1 a 7, episode 2 a 9. I really like them both. I thought 2 is much better. I thought they're touching into more, first one was just kind of set up, getting the legs underneath it, understandable. Second one was a lot of fun. My favorite Easter egg, I heard you guys talking before you brought me up. My favorite Easter egg is when they first opened the door to the old office and Mulder's pencils were still in the ceiling.
Yeah.
That was my personal favorite. My wife actually caught that and kudos to Aaron for catching that and pointing that out to me. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the only thing I have to say about that is if you're going to continue the run of the X-Files, those pencils always have to remain in the ceiling until they all drop out by gravity. You have to leave them there. I'm sorry. So, yeah, the other great little thing I will mention on is I like how Skinner's a lot more on their side, because there's that funny scene in the second episode when the DOD guy is like, no, this stuff is classified, and he finally looks over to Mulder. I'm assuming you got copies. Like he already knows the answer. It's like, I've dealt with these two enough in his rebellious ways. I'm not even going to argue about protocol at this point.
But you know what? It does kind of show the show's understanding of the changing times, though, because 20 years ago when the X-Files was on, Skinner would have just snapped back at the DOD guy and says, I'm sorry, did somebody repeal Posse Comitatus? You're not allowed to operate on American soil.
Right.
Now with the Patriot Act and all that stuff, so I think it's a very subtle way of the show showing its understanding of the modern times.
Right. I agree. All right. So real quick, this week's Side of the Apocalypse, I know that talking about Top Gun 2 and some of the other things that we mentioned earlier sounded like this week's Side of the Apocalypse, but no, this is actually it. Really, we're talking about lack of diversity with the Oscars. I mean, that's the big issue of the day with all of these people, and then all of a sudden, all of the African American actors and actresses are winning awards at the Screen Guild Awards and all that. I don't take the Oscars that seriously anymore, and everybody knows my gripe why when Shakespeare in Love beat out Saving Private Ryan for Best Picture in 1998. But
or a film nobody heard of, Keep the Fellowship of the Rim.
Right. I mean, if that's all that if that's really the biggest news of the day when it comes to the Oscars, not about how great some of these films are, because this is actually a very good year for movies. There's a lot of great movies in the running between The Big Short, Spotlight. I mean, The Revenant was actually really good. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Back in 1829 in the frontier, there wasn't any black people trapping furs. They were all picking cotton. Okay. So it was relevant. Boston, you're from that area. Are there a lot of black reporters back in the day? It's a little bit of racism there. I mean, but they're still telling kind of a true story.
But Boston was a racist city at the time, so there may have been, but they wouldn't have been given top stories or top billing. And it's not because they weren't capable; it's just because they weren't allowed to, because those were the times.
Right.
So,
when you're dealing about the financial crisis or in the housing market and Wall Street and all the perpetrators and everything, and then the people that took advantage of it, no offense, it was all white men you're telling a true story. Okay.
As a matter of fact, I remember a whole bunch of minorities protesting the fact at the time that it was a bunch of old rich white men are robbing us all blind, and that was actually true. But so now when they do a movie about the old rich white men robbing you all blind, you're pissed off because there are no minorities in it. Huh?
Look,
I'm confused. So
you're creating controversy where there shouldn't be any controversy. I mean, if you really want to talk controversy, how is it that we have 10 films? Okay, we've expanded to 10 films vying for Best Picture, and one slot can't be for Star Wars, even though it's not going to win Best Picture, and we already know it's not, but you can at least give it a little bit of a nod. That's a bigger controversy.
Here's the biggest
and it did have a black man in it.
Here's the biggest gripe I think that the African American community should have with the Oscars this year: the fact that Idris Elba did not get a nomination.
Absolutely.
Because he just won the Screen Actors Guild Award. He's probably going to win the Golden Globe Award, and you didn't even nominate him. But that speaks to not a racist motive. That speaks to a voting group among the Oscars that don't watch any of the bloody frigging movies.
Right.
So, there's a big problem there. But I think the funniest thing about this whole scenario is that the voice of reason came from 4chan. And I'm just going to let the irony of that statement just kind of settle in and let you drink that in for a moment. The voice of reason came from 4chan. And somebody went through every single Oscar winner since 1995 for the past 20 years. And for the major 4 categories, individual categories, best male in a lead role, best male in a supporting role, best female in a lead role, and best female in a supporting role. And he found out that 12.5% of the winners were African American. The African American community, as of the 2010 census, represents 13% of the American population. What's the problem?
Damn it, Brendan, we don't like facts and numbers on this show. Just like Fox News.
So that's another thing. So here's this week's Planet of the Apocalypse B. There is a mothers group that is protesting the new Fox show based off the Neil Gaiman comic Lucifer. Because they're protesting. You're glorifying Satan and blah blah blah. And I'm thinking to myself, ladies, relax. The show is well written. It's funny. The lead is hilarious and charming. So I'm sure Fox is announcing its cancellation any minute. Calm down, ladies. Everything is going to be okay.
Well, I also want to say this about, creating controversy with the Oscars. 2 years ago, 12 Years a Slave pretty much won all the major awards.
Every award, yeah.
Right. It was pretty much a given. So, and it was a good movie, and I understand why it won. I mean, I didn't need to see the movie to tell me that slavery was bad and all that, but you had a great cast. Yeah. So, deservingly. I didn't really see any slavery movies this year, or anything.
Well,
the one movie that really represented the African American plight, Mandela, and there you go.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's just ridiculous, but it is what it is, and it's the world. Hey, look, 2015 was the year of the I'm offended person. We're just carrying the tradition forward.
Well,
yeah, I think
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I said this last week. I think there are way more things that we can be completely upset about than the Oscars. I mean, there's.
You mean like that they're making a series based on Stretch Armstrong, the toy?
Yes, that offends me more. I'm still not over that.
Right.
But I'm certainly not going to boycott Netflix.
No, I'm not. I it's the Oscars. Okay, they can't be taken that seriously. There are movies that deserve to win, and movies that win, for God knows why. All right, none of this is going to cure cancer. It's not really going to benefit human beings. It's not going to stop poverty or anything like that. It's an award show. It's a glorified popularity contest where and then like you mentioned before, where the voting is based on people who have never really watched the movies, but it's all about marketing and it just, come on. Go and enjoy the movies for what they are. Who gives a shit about the awards?
And they're outdated. I think the awards are outdated. When you go to see a movie, if you're going to rent something, you don't necessarily look, oh, it's got an Oscar nomination or it's got Oscar nominated winners. You go and look on your reviews. You go and look, hey, did people enjoy this? All right, excellent. Like they don't matter anymore. I mean, I get it that it's an honor, whatever, blah 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 blah, but they're irrelevant as far as like if it's a good movie or not.
You know what?
That's not how I pick
Here's
my
the
movie
thing.
selection.
Why don't we not let these people who normally vote on Oscars, why don't we just let Rotten Tomatoes do it? I think you'll get a better census that way.
Right.
So, but, yes, 2 parts of this week's Sign of the Apocalypse. So, all right. All right, so.
I'm more interested in the Razzies anyway.
Pretty much. They're always a little bit more entertaining. All right. Alan Rickman. Wow. I have to admit, as a nerd, that was kind of a tough one to swallow.
I didn't even know
even some of the. I didn't either. I honestly
I
was like, what? How's he dead? He can't. He's not even that old. I don't know.
Well, I didn't even think he was as old as he really was. To be honest. So, between all the people like being offended over stupid stuff, I mean, we've had a lot of just, kind of weird deaths this year. I mean, Abe Vigoda, and I do want to mention that it's that one. I'm not kind of surprised because, well, people have thought he's been dead for years.
Dead for years.
Yeah.
People thought he was dead when he acted as the old grandfather in Look Who's Talking, and that was 25 years ago.
Right. So I mean. I think people just assumed, well, they killed him in The Godfather. They must have done it in real life.
Yeah. Hey, if you're up there listening, we love you, buddy. You're hilarious in Look Who's Talking. But, you're old.
But you lasted. But you died
run.
like in your 90s here, okay? So, I mean, come on.
You had a good run.
But, Alan Rickman has done so many just great roles that that some that I don't think people are, really realize. If you're a nerd, you do catch it like, the voice of the robot and the Hitchhiker's, Guide to the Galaxy. And only a true nerd would, recognize that voice. Every guy who loves action moviys, will always, remember him from Die Hard, which really, made him famous to American audiences.
And I think I think Die Hard's the reason why we don't think he's that old, because he would have been in his early 40s when he did Die Hard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just unthinkable because he looks so young in the movie.
Right.
Well, and what's interesting about him is he didn't start acting until he was 29, which for an actor is old
it's very
to just
late.
Get into the business. It's very late to get into the business. So I think that, again, why I thought he was so young is because I was like, oh, well, he's really only been acting since I think 79, 80. I think he did Romeo and Juliet or something, and a lot of British actors who, it's later in life where they do TV and movies and all that. They've been acting for 10 years, on stage, and he hadn't even really been doing the stage all that long. I mean, an interesting fact about him is he didn't go to college to be an actor, like most artists in Britain. He actually went for design and started a graphic design company with friends, and did that for a while before he got into, doing stage work. He'd only really been doing stage work for about 3 or 4 years before he actually, got his first role in a Romeo and Juliet TV movie. So, but yeah, just out of all the people that have kind of passed away, I mean, yes, I'm very sad about David Bowie, but Alan Rickman, that one just kind of hit me more than anything else, just because of all the things that he's done, especially, in the later years. One of my favorite movies that he has done in the last couple of years that I don't think a lot of people saw was CBGB's. He played Hilly Crystal. He played Hilly Crystal, the guy who started the CBGB's, club that became so famous in
who was also known as the Godfather of Punk. And if you look at interviews with of Hilly Crystal and kind of look, he nailed it, and he was just absolutely hilarious in the entire movie. And just trying to do this grand scope about the history of CBGBs. But I mean, outside of sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? Out of the movies like Die Hard and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, most nerds will remember him as Professor Snape, from the Harry Potter series.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which as a fan of the books, he was so perfectly cast as Snape, and when you kind of look at the description of the characters in the books versus the films, they really kind of Hollywoodized them, I guess you would say. Like, Hermione Granger is so much more beautiful than she ever was described as in the books, and all
right.
of these things, which it makes total sense. It's Hollywood, I get it. But Alan Rickman was so perfect for that, and I think he did it so beautifully. And there's kind of an interesting story that went around after, shortly after his death, where J.K. Rowling told him well before any of the latter books were finished, the meaning behind the word always and what that meant for Professor Snape, and he really was able to play to that, in the earlier movies before anybody kind of knew what that was going to mean for him. He was the only one that knew, which I thought was an interesting thing that she trusted him with and piece of information.
Well, originally the studios wanted Tim Roth to play Snape, and Tim Roth is a great actor. I'm sure he would have done a good job in it. But Rowling wrote the part of Snape in the books based on Alan Rickman and his look and stuff like that. So I mean, that's who like you said, that's who everybody wanted. It was only because Tim Roth turned down the role because he wanted to do the remake crappy version of Planet of the Apes that Alan Rickman got that role. So, guys, I'm going to step off for a couple
not the best call there.
No, not at all. Guys, I'm going to step off for a couple of minutes and let you guys handle it. So I'll be right back. Talk about Alan Rickman.
Nothing like being thrown to the wolves. Okay.
That's okay.
Oh, like you can't talk about Alan Rickman for a few minutes.
No, of course I can. I'm just going to give you a hard time about it. Now get out of here.
I will be back, audience.
All right, so my favorite role of his is always going to be that of him in Die Hard, just because it's the first time I ever saw him, and he was such a great villain and so charismatic in it. But what's your favorite role of his?
So I'm tied for two because my very first exposure to Alan Rickman was, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. He played the Metatron, the voice of God in Dogma.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Oh, he was absolutely amazing. And the scene where he drops his pants and he's like, basically has a Ken
for the task.
Exactly. He's like, he has a Ken doll crotch. He was just amazing. He was this dry.
He actually
funny.
took a picture with a Ken doll while in that pose during the filming.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
So that was my first exposure to him. So that's where I really kind of fell in love with him. Because that movie, first of all, is a brilliant movie. It's probably my favorite Kevin Smith movie. It's just really well done, and he plays just a great character. And then, but it's tied with he was Judge Turpin in Sweeney Todd, where it's the musical, and I know that's not everybody's thing, so I totally get it if most people haven't seen it, but it's amazing. He's got this beautiful singing voice. He's got a great tone. He plays this kind of tortured character, which he's really good at that. But it's just this beautifully Alan Rickman. It's a dark character, but a dark character who kind of loves so deeply, despite his kind of evil, harsh exterior. So it's but definitely I'm going to pick Dogma for mine.
I think my
Metatron.
favorite line of his as the Metatron is when Linda Fiorentino says, "Oh, whatever movie it was, I forget what it was." He goes, good grief. He goes, you tell somebody in the voice of God, nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. All of a sudden you mention a Charlton Heston movie and they think they're friggin' biblical scholars.
Yeah, I think it's Ten Commandments is the Charlton Heston movie.
The Ten Commandments was the movie. Okay, I couldn't remember. It's been a while since I've seen Dogma,
yeah.
but he really was one of the best parts of Dogma. I mean, there were so many great lines in that movie, but I think him and Salma Hayek made that movie when she inspired Jay to hit Balthazar with the club. But I'm a demon.
Yeah, it was overall. He definitely had some scene stealing moments in that movie, and just,
pretty much any time he was on the film, he stole it from the rest of the people there.
Oh, of course,
and I
absolutely.
think Kevin Smith was fine with that because his character just sits there quiet anyway.
Right.
Hence the name. There was. I'm trying to remember which movie it was, but I guess I'll get back to that in a little bit. But another great bit of his and everything that all nerds love. And as a matter of fact, for him, 1999 was an amazing year because he did Dogma, and then he followed that up with Galaxy Quest.
Absolutely.
and Galaxy Quest is such an amazing movie for anybody who ever is either been involved with Star Trek or a fan of Star Trek, just because it so epitomized everything about just the whole genre and atmosphere around it. And him playing a Spock-like character was almost too on the nose, but just perfect at the same time. And 1999, that year, just for me, because it was the year I came back to the States after being overseas in the Navy. And so I didn't even see movies for a year in the theater because I didn't have one. So I had not seen Saving Private Ryan until I got back to Hawaii, and as soon as I get back to Hawaii, Dogma and Galaxy Quest come out, and so that both of those movies and that year in general is just very special to me, just because it was like getting back into movies and into pop culture for the first time in a long time, and it was just two right back to back that were amazing. But there was another movie he did where he plays a doctor, and I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. I'm looking through his stuff right now, and I can't figure it out. But he plays a doctor who's being helped out, looking for a cure, and he's being helped out by an African American who is not allowed to practice medicine because of the time.
Something the Lord Made, I think.
Yes, that was a phenomenal movie. My wife watched it, and she didn't even realize it was Alan Rickman until the credits rolled. I mean, and she's a huge fan of his, but that's how good of an actor he was and how much of a chameleon he was, where a fan of his didn't even realize it was him until the credits rolled.
Right.
So
I think that kind of what makes him so special, he doesn't always choose, like he has kind of his villainous roles that he's kind of known for, these kind of darker characters, like I said, but then he pops up in these different roles where you go, oh my God, that's Alan Rickman, because he can be such a character actor, and his background was definitely in Shakespeare. He, along with doing Romeo and Juliet, he had done some Shakespearean acting, so I think he's just got this ability to transform kind of into anyone. The movie where it didn't hit me that it was him, and maybe it's because he had like this kind of sandy blonde hair, is he was in the movie Love Actually, which some people love, some people hate, but he plays like a man cheating on his wife, and he has this fabulous scene with the guy who plays Mr. Bean. I can't think of his name.
You mean Rowan Atkinson? Yeah.
Yes, and there's this scene is hysterical because he's trying to hurry up and rush, and Rowan Atkinson is just like, okay, well, just let me put it in a box and and he's buying jewelry for his mistress, and he's trying to hurry up because his wife is there at the mall with him, and it didn't hit me until later throughout the movie. I go, oh my gosh, that's Alan Rickman. Like it took me a second to kind of put two and two together, I guess you would say.
By the way, I want to point out that this is like one of the rare times that a romantic comedy will be mentioned on that nerd show.
It backdoored its way in through other conversation.
Yeah. But in all fairness, I mean, it is actually one of the better ones, as I have had to stomach that movie with a few ex-girlfriends before. And I don't know why non-nerd women, that's like one of their favorite Christmas movies ever. But Alan Rickman is one of the ones that steals the show, you know.
Speaking of his villainous characters, though, you know, everybody talks about Hans Gruber and Sheriff of Nottingham, and rightfully so. They're big movies, and everybody knows them. But my favorite villain character of his, though, other than Hans Gruber, is his character from Quigley Down Under, which is just Quigley Down Under is such an underrated movie. It didn't get it just kind of faded away because, well, Tom Selleck faded away for about 10, 15 years, and he wasn't in much. But it's a great movie. It's a frontier movie, but it's set, instead of being an American frontier, it's set in Australia, which is maybe why it didn't do so well in America, because, you know, Americans have this problem, like, realizing that life exists beyond our borders. But and it's look, I know that's not true of all Americans, but look, a great majority of us are ignorant fools, and that's why these movies don't do well, and that's why Hollywood Americanizes everything that comes out of Hollywood, even if it's a European or Australian or whatever story,
right,
or an Asian story. You know, hello, Infernal Affairs. You know, so and. I'll never get over the fact that The Departed won Best Original Screenplay when it was a remake. But speaking of Oscars, #stupid. Anyway, but Quigley Down Under is a great movie, and it actually is a very special part in the sniper community in the military, because it's all about a sharpshooter. And in the days when it was just iron sights and they didn't have scopes and whatnot, and the term of taking out two men with one shot in the sniper community is known as a Quigley because of that movie. So it's just a really cool little movie. I'm a big fan of it.
Well, yeah. I don't know why people don't talk about that as a great Western a lot more.
Because it's an Australian movie, not an American Western.
Well,
that's
yeah,
why.
but you also have. I love the line too, where, you know, as they're riding a couple of days to, you know, the ranch, and the English soldiers come up and American, land of misfits, and whatever he says, and Tom Selleck, you know, just looks at him. Well, we already ran all of ours out of America. We sent them back to England.
Y'all sent them to Australia, and hence why I'm here. No.
Right. That movie, and there's a lot of good Australian actors that, you know, are not recognized here in America that are within that movie. But if you know, are familiar with Australian film and TV, you'll recognize them. But you also have a very young Ben Mendelsohn, you know, who is the fiery redhead Irish guy who thinks he's as good with a gun and all that. But that movie really is, you know, stolen by, you know, the back and forth between Tom Selleck and Alan Rickman and the actress, and I always forget her name, but, you know, and just
Laura
great. Thank you. They had that movie on the other night on cable. I'm like, that's the perfect one to celebrate with Alan Rickman. Now, speaking of villainous roles, since we're on that subject, there are some. We always like to talk about the cast that never was. And before Sean Bean was offered the role of Alex Trevelyan in GoldenEye, they actually wanted Alan Rickman to play him. So I want you guys to imagine that for just a moment. I mean, not that Sean Bean wasn't great, but Alan Rickman, you know, Alan Rickman doing that role.
The only problem with Alan Rickman doing that role is we think of GoldenEye as the one good Pierce Brosnan movie. And if Alan Rickman, for Bond, if Alan Rickman had been in that, he would have so badly overshadowed Pierce Brosnan that we wouldn't have GoldenEye to remember.
Right. And that may very well be true. It was one of the better James Bonds and everything. But I think the chemistry between Sean Bean and Pierce Brosnan, you know, played very well within that movie.
And it gave birth to the legend of Sean Bean dying in every film.
Pretty much. much, yeah. But the reason that Alan Rickman didn't do the role was he he was tired of playing villains. He had played so many up to that point that it wasn't fun for him anymore, and he wanted to do something different. So, another interesting film, directed by the same guy who did Love Actually, which I found this kind of interesting. So we'll mention another. We will mention another romantic comedy, but he was actually supposed to play the role of Charles, played by Hugh Grant, in the movie Four Weddings and a Funeral, which I thought would have been kind of interesting. And I actually do very much enjoy that movie because of everybody else in it, because you've got a lot of great British actors and stuff. And while Hugh Grant's funny in it, he's...
I think Alan Rickman is always an upgrade over Hugh Grant. And that would have been a better movie.
That would, yeah. It would have been a lot funnier. I mean, not that it wasn't funny, but yeah, I'm kind of sitting back imagining that and like, that really would have been funny.
I do have to mention one movie before we move on, because I know we're almost getting to that point, but when it comes to Alan Rickman and me being as Irish as I am, I'd be completely remiss if I didn't mention his role as Eamon de Valera, Ireland's first president, or Taoiseach, in Michael Collins. So that was an awesome movie with Liam Neeson and many others. And Alan Rickman does a wonderful job playing de Valera, who was very tortured by his own actions during the Irish conflict. So, he just did an amazing job doing it. So,
yeah, I'm. And I think only outside of the Irish community will that movie really truly be recognized. But you did have a huge great cast in there. And here's the thing. His character is, while yes, the first Irish president of the Free State and everything, got a lot of flack, and it isn't and is viewed in a lot of ways as kind of a traitor in Irish history. Because he wanted to do more compromising, and he didn't want to do the guerrilla war, but everybody was fighting with each other at that time, and that's why Michael Collins is seen more as the hero in that within history within that time period. Mm-hmm. But because of that, you really do actually, because of how well he acted, you really do dislike his character. I hate to dislike any character that Alan Rickman does. Yes, I know that Hans Gruber is a bad guy, but he was kind of a stylish and funny bad guy. he was kind of funny as the
London.
Sheriff. And
I have two myself.
Yeah. But no, I mean he just made you actually hate that guy, and yeah. So anyway. I was going to mention that a little bit earlier, and that's a movie that was that kind of bombed at the box office. It was, I think they spent $28 million on that movie, and it only made back. I think it only grossed maybe like $12 million. But still, an important film, and glad that he did it and everything.
And
we're going to take
young Jonathan Rhys Meyers in it too.
Yep, absolutely.
He was the assassin at the end.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about some other things that we really love him in. And I'm going to tell you what I think are I'm going to rate what I think are the best 5 movies that Alan Rickman ever did, besides Harry Potter. Harry Potter's way too easy. And we'll be back in about 30 seconds.
Just because you have a business doesn't mean you have the roadmap to success. In fact, 80% of businesses will fail. But there is one important thing you can do to help ensure that your business is not one of them. Go Pro. For all of your printing needs, your web and graphic design, and your advertising, there is only one place to shop, the Business Pro Shop. Go Pro with your business today and start with 500 free business cards with your first order. Call 888-901-4500 466 bot to go pro.
All right, and we're back. So, now we haven't really talked about probably the greatest nerd role that he ever did outside of Harry Potter, have we?
Well, we did we touched on it for just the heartbeat, but yes.
Oh, for the Galaxy Quest?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We did.
Did I miss it while I had to run off for just a second? Oh well. Well, I'm going to say this. I'm just. There's a really funny thing about that movie that besides him and so I'm going to share two quick stories. It's nice to see that spoof is so popular among fans, especially Star Trek fans. And I love Brendan's story talk with Bruce Boxleitner and somebody else doing their entire panel about Galaxy Quest and not about their careers. Just to show its relevance.
And it was Bruce Boxleitner and Claudia Christian.
That's right. So they wanted to talk about him being knighted, his character being knighted, in the show, and Rickman pointed out that getting way too much in the specifics and too much kind of a backstory and all of that. So he kind of asked that they take that out. Well, one of the little screw-ups about it is why they don't refer to him as, Sir Alexander Dane. In the credits, if you look closely enough, it actually still says Sir Alexander Dane. Yeah. So, his character is knighted, according to the, credits and stuff. So, a few years ago, when we were doing our promo night for Star Trek Into Darkness, we one of the last trivia question we did, I just really wanted to test the audience to see how well they, knew, especially the spoofs. So we talked about, the question was, what famous sci-fi spoof, what's the name of the characters in this sci-fi spoof based off of Spock, and what is his famous saying? Most of the people kind of looked around like, huh? But, the true Star Trek fans that, they know their nerd stuff. And there was a guy in the back that raised his hand first, and he actually stood up proudly and was like, "By Kraptar Sammer, you shall be avenged." Yeah. I like the fact that whether people realize that that's Alan Rickman or not, that out of all the stuff that that he's done, that is so recognized, so much by nerds, and that saying, people can quote that just as much as "live long and prosper." And not to remember, he had 5 curtain calls. I used to play Richard III. So I just wanted to point that out. That was one of the greatest spoof movies. I would almost say that as much as I love Spaceballs, I think I love Galaxy Quest just a little bit more.
Well, I mean, yeah, Spaceballs, I love Spaceballs, will always love Spaceballs. I'm very much looking forward to a new one, which is supposedly getting off the ground. But Spaceballs was a spoof to be a spoof. Galaxy Quest was a spoof with a little bit more heart and a little bit more about the community and about, conventions and, there was just more to it than being a spoof. And don't get me wrong, I love all of Mel Brooks' work. I love Men in Tights. I love History of the World, Blazing Saddles. I mean, Young Frankenstein. They're all amazing. They're fantastic movies. But Galaxy Quest was just a little something different and a little better.
Right. I mean, it's a spoof, but it's very smartly written. It's just and the fact of how the cast is acting really had great chemistry with one another, just all around. And you had all these great people from that were in very nerdy things. Not really Tim Allen. I mean, that was kind of an interesting choice, but he pulled it off and he was funny. But yeah, I mean, just Alan Rickman just being kind of in that little side part and doing and agreeing to do it. Just the pure love there. Actually, my favorite scenes in the entire movie are like him and Sam Rockwell kind of going back and forth on things, just because I'm such a huge Sam, Rockwell. He's such a chameleon in movies that pops up here and there in different weird things. So, all right. Here are like the few movies that I think are absolutely the best. Galaxy Quest is one of them. I think everybody should see that, even if you're not a nerd, because you will appreciate the fandom and the love that that people have for Star Trek, especially if you're criticizing them for having a borderline fetish for something, which there's nothing wrong for. For all those people that criticize Star Trek fans, they're usually Duck Dynasty fans, which even have weirder fetishes. But that's neither here or there. I don't understand why that show's on TV, but then again, I don't understand why most reality TV is.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah. So the first, besides that, for the true Kevin Smith fans, Dogma is always my favorite. And the fact that Kevin Smith actually got Alan Rickman to be in one of his movies, I think is quite amazing. Playing the voice of God. And there's even more irony to that, because if you hear, he has a great voice, but I like his sarcastic wit and all that, being the voice of God in that movie. But then you also hear him that, with this depressed voice in A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, So Dogma is one of those that I think everybody should really, really see. And why people got so upset were protesting it, I don't really know why. I mean, it was just absolutely hilarious.
It had a poop monster in it. Why are you protesting a movie that has a poop monster in it? Like, it's not that serious.
Right.
But here's the only problem I have with Dogma. Dogma has single-handedly ruined for me entire seasons of Supernatural, because I just can't see the guy who played Booger in Revenge of the Nerds being Metatron when I know Alan Rickman is. Which is horrible, because the way they want him to play Metatron, the guy who does Booger is perfect, but it's still ruined because I know it's supposed to be Alan Rickman.
Right. I agree. I agree. The other one besides those two is a movie called Bottle Shock, which came out about 8 years ago. And it's actually based on a true story. It's about an Englishman who, is a snob. Okay, he plays Steven Spurrier, who runs a wine academy and thinks, that only France can do so much, is so much better at it than America. And this event actually happened in 1976. What really kind of made his role so fantastic, and him like being this snobbish Englishman, is how he plays off of American actors like Dennis Farina, running a tourist shop in Paris and trying to explain to him, no one will come into your store because you think you're so much better than the customer, and that kind of thing. And then, of course, he has this very snobbish attitude when he goes to visit the Napa Valleys and all the wineries in California, and starts putting together. He basically builds a contest to pit American wines against French wines, okay, to show the superiority of French wines. But it's a blind tasting, and it turns out that one of the American wines actually wins. And it became this very historic event and shattered the myth that the French were so much better and all that. But he just plays this snobbish character all the way, throughout the entire movie. And there's a great scene in there with Bill Pullman, where Bill Pullman is like, "Why don't I like you?" "Well, it's because I'm British and so much smarter than everybody." And it's just like, but kind of a romantic comedy, but kind of a biography. Great cast, had Chris Pine in it, Dennis Farina, Bill Pullman. That's one of those that I think you can watch with a non-nerd, and really appreciate the movie and appreciate, the history of it, because it's been 40 years since that happened. And this, guy realizing that, America does make pretty good wines, and it was perfect for Alan Rickman. The other movie that I would suggest that's an absolute, just kind of a hidden treasure, very, very funny, okay, and perfect for Alan Rickman being a chameleon, is a movie called Blow Dry. And for the nerds out there that mistook what that title is, no, does not mean that. But it's about a hair competition. And it's got Alan Rickman, Bill Nye, Hugh Bonneville, Heidi Klum is actually in it. It's got Natasha Richardson, Rachel Lee Cook, and Josh Hartnett. Is that
Hartnett?
Is that from
Hartnett.
Hollywood Homicide?
Yeah, Josh Hartnett.
Just Hartnett.
Yeah, Hartnett. Thank you. So, I want everybody to imagine about a hair competition, about stylists, and Bill Nye, Alan Rickman. Just imagine these great British actors, okay? And it's about all the conniving, backstage trying to, get an upper hand on everybody. And Alan Rickman plays a guy with his, with a tattoo of cutters and everything on the bottom of his feet with everybody. Also, it's got what's-his-face, who was the castle keeper from Harry Potter and whatnot. But Hugh Bonneville's got this, weird blondish hair with, like, little black spikes and, little Mexican goatee, because they're hairdressers. I could never, the first time I watched this about 10 years ago, I couldn't stop laughing. I was just like, this can't be real. And it is. And the fact that you throw Heidi Klum in there as like a hair model, sleeping with both of the brothers that are cutting hair, makes it even better. But yes, that's one of Alan Rickman's, best. And, there's great drama and stuff. And nobody ever believes me about this, film. The last one that I would suggest is, again, CBGB's. If you love the history of that and want to see a movie kind of, and they couldn't have found anybody more perfect than Alan Rickman to play Hilly Crystal. And, to talk about, in dealing with all of the musicians and stuff like that who became famous and stuff. So those are kind of my 5, like, just great outside of Harry Potter. And yes, you gotta, if you have to have honorable mentions, you watch Die Hard every Christmas. Shouldn't Die Hard be a Christmas movie? Be like a regular Christmas movie?
It is a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie.
No.
It's not a should. It's a fact.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Whether
I don't
or not
know why
ABC Family recognizes this, I don't care.
Well, I'm just
immaterial.
saying. Look, I watch 3 movies every Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life, Die Hard, and yes, The Christmas Story.
I watch Die Hard and Die Hard 2.
Yeah. Die Hard 2 is actually a Christmas movie, too. That's right. I totally forgot about that. And, of course,
just the facts, man.
Under.
Just the facts.
So, Whitney, what is your all-time favorite Alan Rickman movie?
I said this earlier while you were away, but mine is Dogma. That's where I was first introduced to Alan Rickman. I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. I love pretty much anything he's ever done, and I include Jersey Girl in that. As terrible as that was, I still love it.
It wasn't really that bad of a movie. I mean, it wasn't.
It really
wasn't.
It just right, exactly. It wasn't what we come to expect for Kevin Smith. But it actually, sitting down and watching it recently in mixed company, it's a bit raunchier than I kind of remembered it being, and I was like, oh wait, this is definitely a Kevin Smith movie. But sidetracked. No, but Dogma I think is my favorite Alan Rickman movie. It just really, he's just incredible. He's the voice of God, and he's really kind of sassy in it. And he's just like, how do you not know this? You're kind of an idiot. And when he drops his pants and has his flat front like Ken, it's it's a beautiful moment, and and I agree.
Right.
You get somebody as kind of what we think of as quote unquote sophisticated actor to be in a Kevin Smith movie, who Kevin Smith can be pretty shunned in the Hollywood.
Well, here's two little trivia things about Alan Rickman being in that movie. The first being, Kevin Smith, requested that he audition or whatever, or wanted him to be in it after he heard that, Alan Rickman had mentioned that Chasing Amy was one of the best written movies of, 1997, which, very true. And getting that kind of a compliment, it's like, well, of course I want you in the film. And then he said yes, after reading the script. The other one is a really funny anecdote about Jason Mewes, who, was at that time, really dealing with drug problems and stuff, But it's the one true, movie up till about, I think, Clerks 2 or later that before he really finally got clean, that he was actually a professional actor. And because, and he said in an interview, I memorized my lines, I memorized the entire script. I, stayed off drugs and everything because I didn't want to piss off that Rickman dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good way to get sober. I don't want to piss off this great actor.
Piss off the Rickman dude. Yeah, exactly. And then I guess my kind of honorable mention for favorite is, again, probably not very popular on the show, but Sweeney Todd, Demon Bar of Fleet Street. He played Judge Turpin.
Yes.
If you're a theater fan or a musical fan, it is a fantastic film. It's an amazing adaptation of that play. It's one of those Tim Burton and Johnny Depp films, but Alan Rickman kind of steals, as he does in pretty much any movie he's in, steals every scene that he's in, and has a beautiful singing voice, which of course he does, because it's Alan Rickman. Why would that surprise me? But it's a great movie, and if you can sit through a musical, which I know some people can't, I highly, highly recommend it. It's creepy and gory and things you don't expect from a musical.
Right. Brendan, what about you?
One favorite? Pick one?
Well, you can pick two.
Okay,
we'll
pick two.
Pick two.
All right. Then, I won't go the Die Hard route because it's too easy. But I'll go quickly Down Under, and I'll go Michael Collins.
Okay.
Those are my two. Because I'm a big fan of, me, I'm a huge historical guy anyway, so anything that's about actual history or anything set in a period piece, I'm a big fan of period pieces. So, yeah, I'm going to go with those two. Those are my favorites of his.
Well, the five that I mentioned earlier that I think everybody should see are my favorites. Of course, Die Hard, and I will throw Die Hard and Quickly Down Under in there. If they're on TV, I'll always watch them. So, but I do want to mention a few others that he did as we're, closing out this show. I don't know how many people have actually seen him play Grigory Rasputin. It was a TV movie about 20 years ago. And,
it's a great movie.
Yeah, out of all
the one on HBO, the one that they did.
Was it HBO?
I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, it was.
Well,
HBO
it is kind of a TV movie.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But yes, I have seen it.
That, out of all the adaptations and stuff where they've done about Rasputin, oh my God! If he's done villainous roles, great villainous roles, that's probably the one that great in the sense of I don't want to ever be around this person. Like, not really funny, just a true sociopath, in the way that they did, they did that movie. In fact, I think there should be a rule in Hollywood. After that movie, there should never be anything made ever again about Rasputin, because you're never gonna top that. You nailed it right there. End of story.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I'm not going to mention any Jane Austen movies based off her books or anything, even though I know a lot of people say that he was great in Sense and Sensibility, and yes, he was, because he's Alan Rickman. But, it's not really anything that we talk about. There was a movie a couple years ago that I don't think anybody actually really saw, and while he is not in it as much, and it's the other cast members that kind of take center stage. It's a movie called A Little Chaos, where he plays Louis XIV. And the movie is about a talented landscape artist, or talented landscape artists who become romantically entangled while building a garden in King Louis's palace at Versailles. So, I mean, it's mostly centered around Kate Winslet's, character and everything, but it's a period piece. And really, if you look at what other adaptations do we have of, King Louis? What? Leonardo DiCaprio and The Man with the Iron Mask? But Alan Rickman just, kind of behind the scenes, not in the movie very much, plays this very regal but kind of witty, King Louis. And it was one of those movies I caught on cable. Like, didn't remember it coming out, saw it and like, I'll watch it. And Alan Rickman pops up like, okay, I'll keep watching it because Alan Rickman's in it. And then I got to the end, I was like, wow. I got all the way to the end, I was like, wow. This actually really was a good movie. And he should play kings, more often. That kind of thing. So that's a very kind of underrated, period piece that he was in that most people may not realize. So, and of course, he played the Blue Caterpillar in the Alice in Wonderland movie.
Absalom.
Yeah. And he did reprise that role as they are doing a sequel called Alice Through the Looking Glass. So,
which Aaron is very much excited about. Cannot wait to see that.
Hey, the first one was actually good. I will say.
But I've been put on notice that I'm taking her to see that.
You've been put on notice.
Oh yes.
Now, for a little bit of irony, and in case anybody didn't know this, and this is just your fun little trivia as we close out this show, Alan Rickman did an episode of King of the Hill. Yes, I am.
Yes.
Yes. He did an episode and played King Philip. So, there you go. Of course, you would have Alan Rickman as a great English actor playing somebody named King Philip. I don't really remember the episode, and now I want to go look it up, but there you go. All right. Brendan, real quick, is there a beer that you would recommend to our audience?
Let's see.
Or maybe a whiskey.
No, we're going to stick with beer this week because we're talking about Alan Rickman, and if we're talking about Alan Rickman, we need to do a good English beer. I'm just going to go with a brewery because they've got so many good ones. But if you're going to be sitting down watching an Alan Rickman movie this week in remembrance of him, grab yourself either Samuel Smith's Nut Brown or Samuel Smith's Organic Chocolate Stout. It's a great English brewery. It'll go down really well with just about anything you're having. And, watch Alan Rickman, have a good English beer, and enjoy yourself.
Well, there you go. That is a great brewery there. But we do want to say that we are going to miss one of our favorite people, and it's very sad that he will not be in any more movies. But he was in a lot of great ones that we all love and we'll never get tired of watching. So if we were to rate Alan Rickman, I think it's safe to say that we could give him definitely an A when it comes to acting for all the stuff that he has done. So, all right. We will not be back next week as it is a production weekend for our documentary, and then the weekend after that we will be at a convention. So we'll be off for 2 weeks, but then we'll be back talking about more nerd things, including rating the best nerd heroine in the nerd universe. Who is our favorite?
Ooh, that's
there's
a lot of conversation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them from the Joss Whedon universe that will be competing with each other. I'm thinking mud wrestling. Oh, sorry, that's just me.
Of course you would.
Oh, goodness.
I think that's a good way to battle it out. All right. Everybody, we are out of here for this week. Have a great week, and stay nerdy. Say goodbye, everybody.
In the words of Deadpool, #touch yourself.